Okay, so I wanted to do a few more just kind of practice problems for the stoichiometry if you need to watch a few more. And I also have the little foldable that I attached in a learning plan on this document, so I can kind of show you how I would use it to kind of help me set up my problems. Okay, so the first, for all these problems, we're going to be using the same equation. Okay, magnesium plus hydrochloric acid is going to yield hydrogen gas and magnesium chloride. Okay, so I've balanced my equation. My only coefficient is the number 2 in front of hydrochloric acid. Okay, so one thing that I would write on my little foldable is right here, this little section. This is where that mole ratio is going to come into play. Okay, so that's where I'm going to be looking at those coefficients, okay, or red numbers in front of my elements or my compounds in my equation. Okay, so let's just start with the first one. So it starts with how many moles of hydrogen. Okay, so I'm looking for hydrogen. Moles of hydrogen can be produced if I start with 3 moles of hydrochloric acid. Okay, so if I'm going from moles given, so that's right here, okay, and I'm going to moles wanted, that's right here, okay, really I'm not using this whole side or this whole side of my foldable. Okay, and remember we said this grams we only use if we're using the top, so we're really not using this grams either. Okay, so when I'm setting up my equation, I'm going to set it up just like my foldable tells me. Okay, so I'm going to have my moles of my given, which is 3 moles of HCl. That's what I was given. Okay, right here. And then my next is going to be my mole ratio. So what do I know has to go on the bottom? I know that HCl needs to go on the bottom because I need it to cancel out. What number is in front of HCl? It's a 2. Okay, so now I've done my moles given. I've used my ratio on the bottom. Now I need to get my ratio for what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for hydrogen. What number is in front of hydrogen? Just 1. Okay, so when I type that in my calculator, I'm just going to type 3 divided by 2. So the answer is just 1.5 moles of hydrogen because these cancel out. Okay, let's do another one. So again, this little section here is my mole ratio. We're using the same equation. Okay, so let's look at what the question's asking. How many moles of hydrogen, so again, we're looking for hydrogen here, can be produced if I have 28 grams of hydrochloric acid? Okay, so in my foldable, let me look and see what I need to kind of cancel out. So grams given, I have that. That's the 28, right? Then I'm looking for moles of hydrogen. So I don't need all this over here. I'm going to stop with my moles of hydrogen. Okay, so I'm going to set it up just like my foldable looks like. I'm going to have that many sections. And we know we're always going to start with what we're given, which was 28 grams of HCl. So what do I know has to be on the bottom? Grams of HCl for every 1 mole. How do I find how many grams per mole? I'm going to look at my periodic table. So hydrogen is 1.01 if you want to, or just 1. Chlorine is 35.45. When I add those together, I get 36.46. Okay, so this is the same thing that we had done before. We're going from moles, grams to moles, we have to use the molar mass. Okay, I get from the periodic table. So now I've done this part, this part, this part. Now I'm ready for this mole ratio section. Okay, so I know that since I have moles of HCl on the top, I need to have moles of HCl on the bottom. So what do I have? I have a 2. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for moles of hydrogen, and there's only an invisible 1 in front of that. Okay, so now I've done both parts of my mole ratio. And remember, I'm not using this part because I'm just looking for moles, so I can stop. I don't need anything over there. So when I type that in my calculator, multiply the top, divide by at the bottom, end up with 0.3838 moles of H2. So that's my answer. Okay, let's look at another one here. Okay, so again, same equation. This is my mole ratio. Okay, and this one, I'm gonna kind of also talk about the limiting reactant and the percent yield. So just a quick review on that as well. Okay, so if I'm looking to find my limiting reactant, remember we're gonna do the exact same thing that we just did in the previous problems. We're just gonna have to do it twice. We're gonna have to do it with the 42 grams of magnesium and the 30 grams of HCl. Okay, so I know that when I start, these are the two things that I'm starting with. Okay, those amounts, those are my givens. Okay, and then I'm looking for my grams of magnesium chloride. So since I'm starting with grams and I'm looking for grams, that means I'm gonna have to go all the way from the beginning to the end of my foldable. So I'm gonna have to use the whole thing. So I'm just gonna set it up with that many spaces. So 1, 2, 3. This one gets the same thing. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we'll just start with magnesium first. Okay, I have my grams given. Now I need to go from grams to mole. How can I go from grams to mole? I'm gonna look at the periodic table. There's 24.31 grams of magnesium for every 1 mole. So that's all we've done is just gone from grams to moles. Okay, so I've done these two parts here. Now I'm just looking at my mole ratio. I'm ready for that mole ratio section. So what do I know has to be on the bottom? Moles of magnesium. I'm gonna look at my equation. What number is in front of magnesium? An invisible 1. Okay, remember this is what I'm looking for. You can circle it if it helps you. Okay, and what number is in front of that? A 1. Okay, so I'm just gonna have my 1-to-1 ratio. 1 magnesium for every 1 magnesium chloride. Okay, so that's my mole ratio. Now if I wanna go from moles to grams, again, this is where my molar mass comes in. So I have my 1 mole of magnesium chloride on the bottom. How am I gonna find how many grams magnesium chloride there are? I'm gonna look at my periodic table and add it up. So 24.3 for my magnesium, and then 35.45 for my chlorine, but I have 2 of those, so I have to add that twice. So I end up with 95.21 grams. Okay, so now let's look at HCl. Let me erase my check mark so we can follow along. So we're gonna do the same thing. We started with 30 grams given. How can I go from grams to moles, right? I'm gonna look at my periodic table and I'm gonna get my molar mass. So hydrogen is 1.01, chlorine is 35.45. When I add those together, I get 36.46. Okay, so I've done my grams given and I've turned those into moles. Now I'm ready for this mole ratio. So I'm gonna look up at my equation. I know that moles of HCl need to go on the bottom because that's what's on the top right here. How many moles of HCl do I have? I have 2. Okay, I'm still looking for this magnesium chloride. How many moles do I have in my equation? An invisible 1. Okay, so now I've done my mole ratio. I'm good with that. Now I need to go from moles to grams. How can I do that? I'm gonna use my molar mass. Okay, and we've already found our molar mass up here with the first time we did this, the 95.21, right? I just added 1 magnesium and 2 chlorines from the periodic table. So it's the same thing for both of those, so 95.21. Now I can just multiply everything on the top. So I'm gonna start with my 42 grams of magnesium times 95.21. Divide by the bottom, so I'm going to divide by 24.31, and then the rest are just 1s. So I end up with, let me do a different color, 164 grams. Okay, so now let's do my HCl. If I started with 30 times 95.21, multiply everything on the top, divide by the bottom, so divide by 36.46 and divide by 2, and I end up with sorry, my calculator did something weird. Let me divide this one more time. Divided by 2. All right, so 39 grams. Okay, so now let me mark this out because I'll have to change my number. Let's look at our limiting reactant. Okay, so limiting reactant, remember, is the one that runs out first. It's like my marshmallows from yesterday's lecture. If I run out of marshmallows, I can't make any more s'mores, right? That's my limiting reactant. That's gonna limit the number of s'mores I can make. Okay, so to figure out what's my limiting reactant in my equation, I'm just looking at which one of these is the smallest amount. Which one do I run out of first, right? So what this is saying is that my 30 grams of HCl is gonna run out as soon as I can make 39 grams of my product, okay? This is all I can make with this HCl. There's no way I can make 164 grams because I've run out right here. So my limiting reactant is my HCl, okay? It's all gone. It's been used up in my reaction. I probably have some extra magnesium sitting around, okay? But my HCl has been used up. So if I want to find my percent yield, let's say, let me change this number. Let's say I went into the lab and I actually produced 30 grams. Okay, how could I find my percent yield? Well, remember percent yield. Remember this equation is on your reference sheet, page 1. Let me just look it back up so I tell you the right page. It's the very last page in your lab manual. Page 147. It's kind of towards the top, like the fourth set of boxes down. It says percent yield. So percent yield is just my actual amount over my theoretical, right? Which is what the math told me I get, which is what I calculated I could get. This is my theoretical value here, the 39. And then we have to multiply it by 100 because we want percent. So what was my actual? I said in the lab I produced 30 grams. My theoretical should have been 39. I should have got 39 grams, but something happened in the lab that meant I didn't. I'm going to multiply it by 100, type it in my calculator, and I end up with 76.9%. So what that's saying is that I'm actually made about 77% of what I thought I could make. So something might have happened. Maybe I measured wrong. Maybe the reaction didn't go all the way. Maybe something happened funky. I don't know what it is, some kind of error that meant that I just didn't get 100% of what I should have got. You'll never, hardly ever get 100% of what you should get in real life. It just doesn't, because there's just so many other factors that affect it. It just doesn't always work out perfect. Hopefully that was a little bit of a help. Like I said, this isn't required to do anything, but at least you can kind of see a few examples. If you need more help on using the foldable and you want to come to the Google Meet tomorrow, I'm going to do one at 10 a.m. or on Wednesday, 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Even if you're not in third block, if you're in first block and you need more help, I'm happy to help you. If you need to set up your own like private Google chat meet, if you want me to go over a few things, but hopefully this at least helps you looking at this foldable a little bit and kind of seeing how that helps